Good evening, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Welcome back and nice to have you here. As always, I appreciate your sharing my videos and commenting and liking it and subscribing to it. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And today is September 23rd, 2021. I have some news to share with you. First, I will start with the local news just breaking in. The attack, uh, the shooting at Kroger store in Tennessee. This is just breaking in. Let's share ABC News about this attack, and I will go to my other news. Let's listen.
The victims of the crime, and then we'll be assisting with other investigative interviews and things of that nature. So it's a great team effort. Just always in the site of tragedy, it's good to see the Memphis and Collierville, West Tennessee law enforcement communities pull together, as we always do when tragedy strikes.
So this is just breaking news.
Teresa Dickerson, and I'm the Corporate Affairs Manager for Kroger Delta Division. I'd like to just say every Kroger associate here in this city, in the Mid-South, we stand with our team here at the Collierville store. Actually, every associate throughout the country. We are praying for our associates here in Collierville, and we're asking the community to please pray for us as we go through this difficult time. We're saddened and heartbroken by what happened here today. It is an emotional roller coaster, as you can imagine. And we, of course, have provided counseling for every associate who's here today. And we will continue to do that. We'll also close the store. It will remain closed until further notice. Again, this is a tragic incident, and we are saddened by it. Please pray for our family, our Kroger family, the family of the victims, and we're asking today that you will, for the integrity of this investigation, please direct all questions to the Collierville Police Department. And we just want to say thank you to the police department, to the first responders who were rushing in as people were rushing out. If you can imagine that, then you also pray for our first responders who came out today to help us during this tragic incident. Thank you.
Ma'am, very little. Right now, he's deceased. We're still continuing the investigation. It's ongoing. There's search warrants that are going to be carried out shortly at different locations, or at one in particular. Can't give that out, so I know that's the next question. But we're going to carry this thing as far as we can to see and make sure that there's no one else involved.
Chief, could you talk about the truck in front of the store? I know your bomb unit has been there. As a matter of fact, I think they're right now.
Right.
Could you talk about what you're looking for?
Well, that's pretty standard in these types of situations. We want to check and make sure, we know from our past experience, or I say past experience, my past knowledge of these incidents around the country. There have been times where there have been booby traps and things like that that's been associated with these, so it's out of abundance of caution. We have the resources here. We have some of the finest specialized resources in this part of the country, and they've been here for a long time preparing for terrorist-type attacks. In this case, we don't believe that's involved here, but it's early in the investigation, and we're continuing on. But it's just making sure that any contact, that we keep this community safe.
Chief, what about this trip?
How many were customers? How many were employees?
I don't have that information right now. We'll try to get that for you tomorrow.
Do you know their status? Do you know their conditions?
Right now, it's still the same. I know that we had one in surgery and another in ICU. And so y'all continue to pray. We don't want there to be any more loss of life.
Chief, what about those gunshots? Because there's a chance that someone might have tripped. Do you know their Teresa? Were they all been
I don't have any information to support that. Yes, sir, Brad.
Chief, what about the training that you all have dealt with in active shooting investigated, without giving away specific tactics, but what helped your officers today potentially have something worse happen?
It hasn't been 3 months. The Collierville Police Department hosted a multi-agency active shooter training scenario with our law enforcement partners, fire, and I'm very thankful that we did. It's a whole lot easier to go through. You make your mistakes there. Today, what the result was victims were able to get medical treatment much faster because of the integration between police and fire. And our partners come in. Everyone knew. Very proud of our police officers. I think, and thank you for saying that, Teresa. You know, it's one thing to see it on the news, but it's another thing when you're having to go in and know that there's a potential person armed on that other side, and there was not one person that didn't. That building was flooded with blue uniforms, and I'm very thankful for them. That's part of the investigation. We're not going to get into that now. Ma'am? It's part of the investigation. So, you're talking about the shooter? I do not know. I don't have that information. We'll try to get that for you before tomorrow.
Okay, so this is just the breaking news from Memphis, Tennessee, at Kroger store. Nothing about the details. I know some deceased, some injured, but as you can hear, it's a very active investigation. So they don't tell you who's the shooter, how many died, how many injured. So you guys need to follow the news to get these details in upcoming hours, days, maybe weeks. So this is a tragedy keep happening in the United States. We have no control over the guns, and it's keep happening in shopping stores, schools, and other places. So it's a tragedy. We have to deal with it from time and time again. So this is a breaking story. Let's go to the other news now. So welcome back again, and let's see. Oromo political prisoners' well-being is in grave danger in Ethiopia. According to their families and Oromo Liberation Front officials, the whereabouts of their whereabouts is unknown after the Oromo political prisoners were taken out of the Galan and other Addis Ababa surrounding police stations. Their names are Mikael Boran, Qananisa Ayana, Colonel Gammachu Ayana, Bate Urgesa, Dr. Gada Wakjira, Lammi Benya, Dawit Abdata, Gada Gabisa, Wako Nalo, Gurmu Ayana, and Ibsa Gadisa. All these Oromo political prisoners were already got their freedom by Ethiopia's courts that have been investigating the accusation brought by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and his close associates against these political prisoners. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and his undercover operatives have been holding these Oromo political prisoners and other thousands and thousands of Oromo in their illegal and undisclosed prison cells. This Ethiopian government illegal practice gravely endangers the safety and the well-being of these Oromo political prisoners and others. The global community should pay attention to these Ethiopia's grave human rights violations and other atrocities, and put maximum pressure on Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and his administration to adhere to national and international laws and free these illegally imprisoned Oromo political prisoners and others. Amnesty International, United Nations Human Rights Council, European Union, Human Rights Watch, the United States, and others must end their silence on the grave human rights violations and other atrocities happening in Oromia region. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and his undercover operatives must be held accountable for all their criminal conducts that have been carrying out on Oromos in Oromia region. Partial credit for this story is Oromo Media Network. So this is a tragedy just happening in Oromia region against Oromo political prisoners. Most of them or all of them checked by judge, residing judges on their case, and they are freed. But Abiy Ahmed take the law into his hands and use it illegally for his own political benefit. Move the prisoners from place to place to put burden on the families and the lawyers of these prisoners, plus to put the prisoners in danger. They could be subjected to uh, torture and other abuses like not getting clothing, appropriate food, family visitation, all these. So he is using the law illegally. He is acting like, already is a dictator. He's acting like one and abusing international and national laws. So concerned citizens media call on international community, all Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International to pay extra attention what is happening in Oromia against Oromos. The law is totally broken. There is no accountability in Oromia. I already reported on this. There are prisoners taken out from jail and shoot them, throw their body in the bushes, drag them on the streets. So all kind of atrocities are happening against Oromos in Oromia region, and this situation require special attention from the global community. The law is broken. There is no justice in Oromia, and Abiy is using the law according to his, benefits. He can release anybody. He can arrest anybody. Nobody control him. No accountability. There is a shoot to kill policy in Oromia. So please, the international community, pay extra attention in Oromia. I know you are paying attention on northern part of Ethiopia, but please do not ignore this part. Too much, crimes happening. Too many atrocities. Too many killings. Too many illegal conducts by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in Oromia region. Bahir Dar imposes new major restriction, restricting movement, penalizing businesses, banning unofficial military training in the city. Yesterday, Bahir Dar city administration announced new restrictive measures, banning carrying of weapons in the city, penalizing businesses who violate new directive, and banning military training outside official channels. These measures were announced after a meeting of the City Security Council where issues concerning the peace and the security of the city were discussed. The council explained that unknown entities who were working against the survival campaign were engaged in suspicious activities in the city. Consequently, the council decided to ban the carrying of weapons by anyone in the city except for the security forces, to forbid the closing sidewalks, driveways, to close any cobblestone roads for business, to forbidden any legal or illegal gambling organized by any individual or group in our city, to forbid the opening of casinos, and prohibit any military training outside government institution. The council threatened the legal action will be taken against individuals who violate the law, wreak havoc, or engage in aforementioned banned activities. These new measures come only a month after multiple cities in the Amara region imposed curfew, banning vehicle and human movement from nightfall till morning. The city administration of Bahir Dar, Injibara, Kombolcha, Dase, Debre Bran explained that these curfews were meant to address the current challenging security situation that require special monitoring following the ongoing conflict between Amara Regional Government and forces loyal to the Tigray People Liberation Front, TPLF, as well as combating what they described as TPLF infiltration. Credit at this standard. So the situation is tense in Amara region, curfew in place, too many restrictions, and fear of infiltration. Okay, President Abdul Fattah al-Sisi slammed on Tuesday Ethiopia's intransigence, which has strained the decade-long negotiation between Egypt, Sudan, and Addis Ababa over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, also known as GERD. The president said the river Nile has been Egypt's only lifeline throughout history, affirming that this explains the overwhelming concern of Egyptian citizens over the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. President al-Sisi's remark came in a recorded speech delivered to the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday. Perhaps you all know the outcome of the ongoing decade-long negotiation between Egypt, Ethiopia, and Sudan as a result of Addis Ababa's known intransigence and unjustified rejection to deal positively with the process in its consecutive stages, President al-Sisi said. Egypt and Sudan have been negotiating with Ethiopia for a decade now to reach a comprehensive and legally binding agreement over GERD to no avail. Both Cairo and Khartoum do not oppose Addis Ababa's development goal. However, they are seeking a legally binding agreement that regulates the rules of filling and operating the dam, as Egypt fears the unilateral filling and operation of the dam would have an impact on its water supply, and Sudan is concerned about regulating flows to its own dams and their safety. The president also slammed the adoption of unilateral approach and the policy of imposing the fait accompli during the GERD negotiation, affirming that this portends wide threat to the security and the stability of the entire region. President al-Sisi said that Egypt, which recognizes the developmental rights of its African brothers, is considered one of the most water deficient countries, and its people remains under the water poverty line. Some 85% of the river water in Egypt flows from the Ethiopian highlands through the Blue Nile, one of the Nile's two main tributaries, along with the White Nile. Egypt, which is considered one of the most water-scarce countries in the world, receives around 60 BCM annually, mainly from the Nile. However, its needs stand at around 114 BCM, placing the 102 million plus country well below the international threshold for water scarcity at 560 cubic meter per person annually. The large gap in water resources in Egypt is overcome by importing 54% of its consumption and reusing 42% of its renewable resources, according to the Egyptian Ministry of Irrigation. Egypt is closely linked to its African reality that the country is very proud of, and that is not only related to its geographic location, it is also related to its existence, President al-Sisi said. He affirmed that cooperation among the African countries will not be achieved by one party defining the requirements of another, but this process must rather be reciprocal. Credit Egypt Daily News. So that's a burning issue. The Ethiopia Renaissance Dam project is keep coming in the news, still not settled. Security Council condemns Sudan's coup attempt. The United Nations Security Council condemned the failed coup in Sudan and voiced its support to the civilian-led government. The attempt took place on Tuesday morning while tribal leaders in eastern Sudan affiliated with the former regime led a protest movement aiming to disturb the national economy. The members of the Security Council condemned in the strongest terms the attempt on 21 September to disturb Sudan's transition by force, reads a statement issued on Wednesday. The 15 members further reiterated their full support to Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok in his endeavor to see Sudan through a successful transition towards a democratic and prosperous future. Hamdok and the civilian force in Sudan said the coup was orchestrated and implemented by military elements belonging to the former regime and directed their criticism to the military complement in the transitional authority for its rejection to reform the army and sack this element. The statement urged the Sudanese parties to engage constructively with the national initiative known as the National Crisis and Issue of the Transition, the way forward, and further encouraged Sudan's civilians and military actors to remain committed and continue working in the spirit of cooperation and collaboration to achieve the goal of Sudan's inclusive transition as outlined in the constitutional document and the Juba Peace Agreement. They further expressed their solidarity with the Sudanese and reiterated their readiness to support Sudan during the transition. So that is a Security Council statement on failed uh, military takeover in Sudan. This is also from U.S. Department on the same issue. The United States condemned the failed attempt by rogue military and civilian actors to seize power from Sudan's civilian-led transitional government, CLTG. The United States continues to support the CLTG in its pursuit of democratic transition for Sudan. We urge the CLTG to hold all those involved accountable through a fair legal process. Anti-democratic action, such as those of September 21 in Khartoum, undermine the call of the Sudanese people for freedom and justice, and place international support for Sudan, including the bilateral relationship with the United States, at risk. We condemn any external interference that seeks to sow disinformation and undermine the will of Sudan's people. Along with a wide range of other international actors, the United States is mobilizing substantial assistance to help Sudan achieve the country's economic and security goals. We will advance this support as Sudan makes continued progress in its ongoing transition, including the establishment of a legislative assembly, reform of the security sector under civilian leadership, and justice and accountability for past human rights abuses. So that's a State Department condemning again the failed coup in Sudan and expressing their support for the transitional government in Sudan. Okay, the last part for today's reading. Cutting off hands and execution to return to Afghanistan, Taliban official says. This is scary news. Very terrorizing and scary news. One of the founders of the Taliban and the chief enforcer of its harsh interpretation of Islamic law when they last ruled Afghanistan said the hardline movement will once again carry out execution and amputation of hands through perhaps not in public. In an interview with the Associated Press, Nuruddin Turban dismissed outrage over the Taliban executions in the past, which sometimes took place in front of crowds at a stadium, and he warned the world against interfering with Afghanistan's new rulers. Everyone criticized us for the punishment in the stadium, but we have never said anything about their laws and their punishments, Turban said, speaking in Kabul. No one will tell us what our laws should be. We will follow Islam and we will make our laws on the Quran. Since the Taliban overran Kabul on August 15 and seized control of the country, Afghans and the world have been watching to see whether they will recreate their harsh rule of the late 1990s. Turban's comments pointed to how the group leaders remain entrenched in a deeply deeply conservative, hardline worldview, even if they are embracing technological change like videos and mobile phones. Turbine, now in his early 60s, was justice minister and head of the so-called Ministry of Propagation of Virtue and Prevention of Vice, effectively the religious police during the Taliban previous rule. At that time, the world denounced the Taliban punishment, which took place in Kabul's sports stadium or on the ground of the sprawling Eidgah mosque, often attended by hundreds of Afghan men. Execution of convicted murderers were usually be a single shot to the head, carried out by the victim's family, who had the option of accepting blood money and allowing the culprit to live. For convicted thieves, the punishment was amputation of a hand. For those convicted of highway robbery, a hand and a foot were amputated. This is a very tough rule, very scary. Trials and convictions were rarely public, and the judiciary was weighted in favor of hardline clerks. Turby said that time judges, including women, would adjudicate cases, but the foundation of Afghanistan's laws will be the Quran. He said the same punishment would be reviewed. Cutting off hands is very necessary for security, he said, saying it had a deterrent effect. He said the cabinet was studying whether to do punishment in public and will develop a policy. In recent days in Kabul, Taliban fighters have revived a punishment they commonly used in the past: public shaming of men accused of small-time theft. On at least 2 occasions in the last week, Kabul men have been packed into the back of a pickup truck, their hands tied, and were paraded around to humiliate them. In one case, their faces were painted to identify them as thieves. In other states, bread was hung from their necks or stuffed in their mouths. Bread, okay. It was not immediately clear what their crimes were. So that's the scary part. The world should deal with it. All the international community joined the force, but they got defeated in Afghanistan. So we have to deal with it. They are coming back with harsh punishment, cutting hand, cutting feet, public shooting, anything they can do, unless some kind of control, through international aid or monetary relation or diplomatic pressure. I don't know what, but they are very tough. All the gains the Western made in that country for the last 20 years could be reversed. The education of the girls, the working of women in public places, and all this harsh punishment, and the freedom. So many challenges, and I would watch it. and we have no choice. And unless the Taliban, adjust themselves with 21st century standards. So thank you. That's the update I have on the reading, and I will close with one video today. Let's see. Okay.
Diamonds. The jewelry exchange has 1 carat studs $5.99, 1 carat solitaires $9.90, 1 carat certified $19.90, with diamond mounting $24.90. Thousands of GIA diamonds.
There we go. Okay, I'm gonna close with this Irrecha dancing and enjoyment took place in just last week, I think, in Minnesota. Okay, so let's see. Share. Credit for this video is Oromo Shop. Uh, so it is from this year Irrecha celebration in Minnesota. It's gonna happen very soon in Addis Ababa. I hope, unless the authority, the prime minister, put some restriction on it. Just last year they did with OPDO members. Instead of the public celebrating, OPDO cadres and the members celebrated Irrecha by using COVID-19 as excuses because they scare of the Oromos. If they come in a massive number, they may, express their opposition how the prime minister is handling the country. So we don't know how many people will allowed, how will be the celebration, but it's coming up in the coming, I think, days. So Irrecha is usually celebrated by Oromos, and the friends of Oromos every year, and it's as an indication of the ending of the winter, rainy, muddy, all these hardships of winter. Then uh, the beginning of the hope, and nice weather, and crops ready, everything, the coming together of families, friends, which which was restricted by filling rivers and weather condition, winter, cold, all this. So Recha is the celebration of uh, transfer of from bad stuff to good stuff, actually, from all these challenges to brightness, welcoming of the sun, welcoming of the readiness of the crop, happiness coming with it, and uh, appreciating the creator for doing all this. So it happens every year. It is celebrated every year in Oromia in a massive number. Oromos coming from all corners of life and celebrate it. And I hope it will happen also this year peacefully. We don't know yet how it will be celebrated. The authorities, the one on power, they don't like it. They don't want it because they are not doing good. They are authoritarian. They are dictators. They know they are working against the people. That's why they don't want the people to come together. If you have good rules, if you are liked by the people, if the people like what you do, you don't have to scare anything, nothing. But since the atrocities you conduct on the people, the killing, the illegal arrest, the breaking of the laws, all illegal shootings, mass assassinations, all this make you enemy of the people. You can govern until the people has the power. That's the only thing you can do. But when the people have the power, they will remove you. They will take the power from you. But since you control the structure of the government, you can survive for a while. So that is Irrecha, and Irrecha It's a welcoming of the ending, the coming of new season, and the ending of the very harsh season. So, and I didn't forget about the ongoing conflict in the northern part, and also OLA fighting in Oromo. I didn't forget. Things are happening, still going on. The war is tense in the northern part. TDF is still pushing to capture more cities. That's why the one I read to you about Bahir Dar and all these cities restriction, they're scared. They're scared. They are living in terror, terrorizing the people. And instead of finding a solution, peaceful solution, they are terrorizing their people, restricting their movement. They are doing everything. So uh, the war is still tense, very heavy, bloody, and I don't have nothing to report now because situation have been tense for almost more than 3 weeks. More and more forces joining to challenge and to counter-attack the places TDF holding. That's why we don't see that much movement in that area. So we'll follow it and I will report to you. Thank you again for today, for joining me. And please subscribe, share the videos, like it, comment on it, so we can be the voice for the voiceless, so we can share updates about back home and around the globe, any news. And please follow that breaking news, the shooting at Memphis, Tennessee Kroger store. Follow it about the details. Thank you again. So long, everyone.